Welcome back, guys. We are jumping right into it. As you can see from the start of the video, we've got a very cool project starting up today. Still continuing the back half, of course, but what we're doing is we're actually going to be building some mounts here out of this 1/8" plate, and we are going to be using our donor motor here to make sure we can get that going. So let's jump right into it. So we got a few tricks up our sleeve with this, but basically what this is going to do, this section of the motor mount is actually going to be solid. This is in comparison to the stock motor mount, which has a big rubber bushing in there. We are going to be using some other parts that we have that we'll look at in a little bit from Barnes 4-wheel drive to actually look at what part of this motor mount cross member situation is actually going to be basically have some play in it. It's not going to be a solid mount, technically to the motor, yes, but we'll show you some things as we go to show you how it's going to have some vibration dampening properties as well. But I'm going to start with just throwing these in. All right, so as you can see, we've got both plates basically mounted to the motor. Used our messed up torch to get them heated up and then bent to the proper angle. This bolt goes in flat, like the base of this sits on flat, and this is on an angle kind of matching where the bell housing is going to match up pretty close. So it's on an angle, it's not perfectly straight, but from there, working on a few different things right now. I want to figure out if we want to go right from here all the way out to the frame rail to basically mount there, or if we want to connect these. I'm thinking I might actually want to connect these. I just don't want to have any issues with like the header or anything like that. So as far as I know, everything here, this is pretty much like where the stock cross member is. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I can use this as kind of my space in between if I want to fill that up and connect these two, make it a little stronger. It's kind of my thought. But really where the magic is going to happen is actually in these parts that we got from Barnes 4-wheel drive. So they are not sponsoring anything yet, but I have been super impressed with all their stuff. This is their crossmember kit, so it basically comes with a couple of link ends with poly bushings, and then these big beefy grade 8 bolts. We've got our mounting tabs. Basically those will mount to the frame, these will mount to the cross member, and then we're going to try out these two. These are meant to basically fit over the end link, and you can mount those basically directly to whatever you're working off of as far as your tube goes. But I think we're actually going to forgo that and just use just the end link itself. So we're obviously not going to be fully welding anything with these in here, so we're going to take a look at it, get everything tacked together as far as connecting these two plates, and then we're going to start messing around with how this is all going to work. So All right, so full disclosure, this video is literally taken a month and I'm not even done with getting the trans and motor mount set finished. As you just watched, I just made a brand new set of plates for our trans mount. Had a change of heart when it came to how we wanted to do the trans mount. Talked it over with Jose, my neighbor. He's an engineer. He has built race cars. I've put together race cars. I've assembled race cars, but I've never engineered a race car. And the packaging of everything, I have a lot to reference, but for what I'm doing, it's so different from anything I've, really followed that I can't really get a ton of ideas, but I understand basic engineering, yes. Simplicity is genius. All right, so that in mind, our current trans mount setup as we have it kind of put together, it's not fully welded. There's some like sections up here where it attaches to the end link. It is fully welded, but it's just a little much. It's just the trans mount. Even though there's going to be a lot of energy flowing through there, the biggest part that I'm worried about is the motor mount, which we're going to get to. I've got some ideas for that. We're going to get to that here in a little bit, but focused on this right now. Talked it over with Jose. I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to just scrap this, which is really sad because this is one of those parts where I look at it and I'm like, man, I'm going to be pulling this out when I'm running the car and I got to pull the motor. I'm going to be dropping this part out, kind of like daydreaming a little bit, which, I do. But realistically, I want to not just toss it together. I'm going to go ahead and do it right. I'm going to make a much cleaner package. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this apart. I'm going to use the ends. Basically, I'm not going to use anything in the middle. I'm going to cut quite a bit off of the height there, and I'm actually just going to basically go straight across. I'm going to come right up, and I'm going to put my tabs here on the outside of the center parallel bars, as I am naming them. So it's going to be much cleaner package. It's going to tuck up higher than this portion of the frame, which is cool. It's right what I'm shooting for. And yeah, sucks, but it's part of the process. Build, don't like it, cut it apart, repeat, but learning. Of course, I've gotten yelled at in the comments for it already. Learning to tack it and not fully weld it, not waste time finishing and whatnot. So gonna go ahead and eat, kind of my pride a little bit, pull this apart, cut it apart, and start the rebuild of it. So long way to go, but we're getting there. All right, guys, so we are moving on to the engine mount here, but I did get a chance to redo the transmission mount. As you can see, it's mounted to the inner rail now, and from there you can kind of see how that goes right across. Uses those plates to mount. Of course, I spaced it 7 millimeters down for when I get the 6-speed. It's the same mounting holes and everything like that, location, but it is basically the 6-speed is 7 millimeters, like 7.2 millimeters taller. So when I mounted it, I made everything level, but I also spaced everything up 7 millimeters to make sure I accounted for that. Have to finish, weld a lot of stuff still, but for now, moving on to the front engine mount, which basically was coming a little too far forward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make that kind of come back a little bit, and so yeah, we're going to cut this current subframe or mount apart real quick. I'm going to move it back, and then basically what's going to end up happening is basically the bushing and everything is going to go somewhere right around here, and that's going to be our motor mount. So let's do it. Alright, so we got everything cut apart basically. We've got our main structure here. We are going to be making some adjustments here, taking roughly 1.5 inches out of here because it's actually too far down. But I want to get this main part of the cross member mount built first. So what I did is I put together a few different pieces. So I've got basically this here. Like I said, I'm basically moving everything back 2 inches, which this is 2 by 2. So moving everything back 2 inches. And at that point, I'm gonna meet up with it, something like that. And so as it comes out, it's gonna then come up. So I'm gonna get this done first, get this all tacked together, make sure it's all square and good. And then from there, we are going to start looking at what the adjustment of this piece looks like. So as I'm learning, it really helps to have as much bolted into place as you possibly can before you start tacking things. Gets things about as close as you can get. Guessing and things like that is really not the way to go, especially when you think you got it going and it's perfect and you fully weld it, which you shouldn't ever do that before test fitting it 3 times, 2-3 times at least. And so learning my lessons as I go, do as I say, not as I do at this point. But I'm learning, figuring it out. The order of operations for fabrication is like kind of what I'm thinking of. So get this tacked up, we'll take a peek at it, and we'll adjust everything as we go. So. All right, so we just dropped the jack for the first time. Engine and transmission. The drivetrain is fully independent and suspended within the framework that will eventually be welded into the back of the GC. So really excited. This has been a really long month or so, just trying to work through a lot of problems. Obviously, a lot of it's still tacked into place, and I need to finish weld a lot of it, and then reinforce some bracing, and obviously build some additional structure to support the tabs and everything. Again, those tabs are really big. They're probably too much for what I am doing, but they're going to be permanent, and they're never going to break, and they add maybe a little bit more weight, but I am not too worried about it. So as you can see, kind of what I did here, I think eventually I'm probably going to actually trim this down and kind of add in a separate brace here and probably back here as well, since I have the room. I'd like to give as much room as I can for the up pipe. I'm not 100% sure that the up pipe's gonna fit there anyway. I might actually have to just make my own up pipe or header in general. I don't know how exactly that's going to look yet. Working to kind of see what I'm going to run. I might even just get like a stock manifold just to see roughly where it falls. But yeah, really excited. Again, I got the rear transmount done, which is cool. Really tight tolerances as far as those mounting plates go. But the game plan is to be able to lift this thing in from the bottom. Realistically, once I finish the rear section of the cage, I don't think I'm going to be able to lift it in and out from the top, especially if I have like a firewall situation going on. So we'll see what that looks like, but really pumped. This was a crazy month, and overall, you saw a lot of the failures, but realistically,
I had a lot of different nights where I was sitting there kind of mulling over different ideas, how I wanted to do things. I still might change up a few things as far as, you know, the front cross member does look a little bit big and bulky with just the big right angle. So I might change that up a little bit. But everything is there. Everything is going to be structurally sound. My biggest worry is making sure that I have room for everything. Getting the valve covers on enough if I needed to, stuff like that, would be obviously an ideal situation if I can get those out in the car. So that's the plan. But yeah, for now, that's gonna do it. This next video that I am going to be working on is actually going to be really getting the rear subframe into the car. But my goal was to get everything set into place, solid mounted, pull it all apart, finish weld everything, finish a lot of the things that I wanted to clean up as far as welds from putting the frame together. And then I'm actually going to be redoing the garage a little bit. Obviously you've seen in videos that it's like extremely messy. It's almost embarrassing of, you know, how crazy it is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorganize a little bit, have some plans coming up. So I'm going to be trying to reorganize so I can have this place look at least a little bit more decent, and at that point be a little bit more organized with everything as well. So that's the plan. If the next video does take a little bit longer to drop, or about the same time, a month is a really long time. But if it does, it does. I really am just trying to put out quality content instead of quick little hits of, hey, I'm cutting this piece of steel, welding this to this, and that's like the whole video. As much as weekly updates and things like that are important, they're just not realistic for creating a quality video. So that is my game plan. We'll see how it goes. But for now, I hope you enjoyed kind of watching the saga of me trying to get this thing mounted. I have been kind of stressed over it all, but I'm very relieved now to have it all pretty much done and figured out. But from there, I just have to kind of tweak things a little bit to make them a little bit more visually appealing. Of course, structural as well, but I'd like it to look like someone knew what they were doing, which I don't, but I'm figuring it out. So, but yeah, appreciate you. Hope to see you next time. I'm gonna drop 2 videos behind this. Please go ahead, click over there, take a peek at them. If you haven't already subscribed, please go subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.